guys can refer to me as Six. Welcome to the channel. And in this video, we're going to continue reading Coraline by Neil Gaiman. Okay, so I already have two previous videos on the book. On the first video, I read pages 1 through 50. On the second video, I read 50 to 75. And in this video, I believe I'm going to try to go from 75 to 100. So, or I'm going to go to 75 to 100. Gotta get some nice book sounds. Those page turns. Okay. Oh, not page 69. Okay. Okay, so the last thing that was said was want to see me do that again. I believe the cat was getting a rat. No, said Coraline. Why do you do it? You're torturing it. Said the cat. It let the rat go. The rat stumbled, dazed for a few steps, then it began to run. With a blow of its paw, the cat knocked the rat into the air and caught it in its mouth. Stop it, said Coraline. The cat dropped the rat between its two front paws. There are those, it said, with a sigh, in tones as smooth as oiled silk, who have suggested that the tendency of a cat to play with its prey is a merciful one. After all, it permits the occasional funny little running snack to escape from time to time. How often does your dinner get to escape? And then it picked the rat up in its mouth and carried it off into the woods, behind a tree. Coraline walked back into the house. All was quiet and empty and deserted. Even her footsteps on the carpeted floor seemed loud. Dust motes hung in a beam of sunlight. At the far end of the hall was the mirror. She could see herself walking toward the mirror, looking, reflected, a little braver than she actually felt. There was nothing else there in the mirror, just her, in the corridor. A hand touched her shoulder, and she looked up. The other mother stared down at Coraline with big black button eyes. Coraline, my darling, she said, I thought we could play some games together this morning. Now you're back from your walk. Hopscotch, Happy Families, Monopoly. You weren't in the mirror, said Coraline. The other mother smiled. Mirrors, she said, are never to be trusted. Now, what game shall we play? Coraline shook her head. I don't want to play with you, she said. I want to go home and be with my real parents. I want you to let them go. To let us all go. The other mother shook her head very slowly. Sharper than a serpent's tooth, she said. It's a daughter's ingratitude still. The proudest spirit can be broken with love. And her long white fingers waggled and caressed the air. I have no plans to love you, said Coraline. No matter what, you can't make me love you. Let's talk about it, said the other mother, and she turned and walked into the lounge. Coraline followed her. The other mother sat down on the big sofa. She picked up a shopping bag from beside the sofa and took out a white rustling paperback from inside it. She extended the hand with it to Coraline. Would you like one? She asked politely, expecting it to be a toffee or a butterscotch bar. Coraline looked down. The bag was half filled with large shiny black beetles. "Suit yourself," said her other mother. She carefully picked out a particularly large and black beetle, pulled off its legs, which she dropped neatly into a big glass ashtray on the small table beside the sofa, and popped the beetle into her mouth. She crunched it happily. "Yum," she said, and took another. "You're sick," said Coraline. "Sick and evil and weird. Is that any way to talk to your mother?" her other mother asked, with her mouth full of black beetles. "You aren't my mother," said Coraline. Her other mother ignored this. "Now, I think you are a little overexcited, Coraline. Perhaps this afternoon we could do a little embroidery together, or some watercolor painting, then dinner, and then, if you have been good, you may play with the rats a little before bed, and I shall read you a story and tuck you in and kiss you good night." Her long white fingers fluttered gently, like a tired butterfly, and Coraline shivered. "No," said Coraline. The other mother sat on the sofa. Her mouth was set in a line. Her lips were pursed. She popped another black beetle into her mouth and then another, like someone with a bag of chocolate-covered raisins. Her big black button eyes stared into Coraline's hazel eyes. Her shiny black hair twined and twisted about her neck and shoulders, as if it were blowing in some wind that Coraline could not touch or feel. They stared at each other for over a minute. Then the other mother said, "Manners." She folded the white paper bag carefully so no black beetles could escape, and she placed it back in the shopping bag. Then she stood up, and up, and up. She seemed taller than Coraline remembered. She reached into her apron pocket and pulled out, first the black door key, which she frowned at and tossed into her shopping bag, then a tiny silver-colored key. She held it up triumphantly. "There we are," she said. "This is for you, Coraline, for your own good, because I love you, to teach you manners. Manners maketh man after all." She pulled Coraline back into the hallway and advanced upon the mirror at the end of the hall. Then she pushed the tiny key into the fabric of the mirror, and she twisted it. It opened like a door, revealing a dark space behind it. "You may come out when you've learned some manners," said the other mother, "and when you're ready to be a loving daughter." She picked Coraline up and pushed her into the dim space behind the mirror. A fragment of beetle was sticking to her lower lip, and there was no expression at all in her black button eyes. Then she swung the mirror door closed and left Coraline in darkness. I believe the number is 7. Somewhere inside her, Coraline could feel a huge sob welling up, and then she stopped it before it came out. She took a deep breath and let it go. She put out her hands to touch the space in which she was imprisoned, and it was the size of a broom closet, tall enough to stand in or to sit in, not wide or deep enough to lie down in. One wall was glass, and it felt cold to the touch. She went around the tiny room a second time, running her hands over every surface that she could reach, feeling for doorknobs or switches or concealed catches, some kind of way out, and found nothing. A spider scuttled over the back of her hand, and she choked back a screech. But apart from the spider, she was alone in the closet in the pitch dark. And then her hand touched something that felt for all the world like somebody's cheek. voice whispered in her ear, "Hush and shush. Say nothing, for the beldam might be listening." Coraline said nothing. I think that's what she's seen. Spooky. She felt a cold hand touch her face, fingers running over it like the gentle beat of a moth's wings. Another voice, hesitant and so faint, Coraline wondered if she were imagining it, said, art thou alive?" "Yes," whispered Coraline. "Poor child," said the first voice. "Who are you?" whispered Coraline. "Names, names, names," said another voice. "All far away and lost. The names are the first things to go, after the breath has gone and the beating of the heart. We keep our memories longer than our names. I still keep pictures in my mind of my governess on some May morning, carrying my hoop and stick, and the morning sun behind her, and all the tulips bobbing in the breeze. But I have forgotten the name of my governess, and of the tulips too." "I don't think tulips have names," said Coraline. "They're just tulips." "Perhaps," said the voice sadly. "But I have always thought that these tulips must have had names. They were red and orange and red and red and orange and yellow, like the embers in the nursery fire of a winter's evening. I remember them." The voice sounded so sad that Coraline put out a hand to the place where the voice was coming from, and she found a cold hand, and she squeezed it tightly. Her eyes were beginning to get used to the darkness. Now Coraline saw, or imagined she saw, three shapes, each as faint and pale as the moon in the daytime sky. They were the shapes of children about her own size. The cold hand squeezed her hand back. "Thank you," said the voice. "Are you a girl?" asked Coraline. "Or a boy?" There was a pause. "When I was small, I wore skirts, and my hair was long and curled," it said doubtfully. "But now that you ask, it does seem to me that one day they took my skirts and gave me breeches and cut my hair. Tain't something we give a mind to," said the first of the voices. "A boy perhaps, then," continued the one whose hand she was holding. "I believe I was it once a boy," and it glowed a little more brightly in the darkness of the room behind the mirror. "What happened to you all?" asked Coraline. "How did you come here?" "She left us here," said one of the voices. "She stole our hearts, and she stole our souls, and she took our lives away, and she left us here, and she forgot about us in the dark." "You poor thing," said Coraline. "How long have you been here?" "So very long a time," said a voice. "A time beyond reckoning," said another voice. "I walked through the scullery door," said the voice of the one that thought it might be a boy, "and I found myself back in the parlor. But she was waiting for me. She told me she was my other mamma, but I never saw my true mamma again." "Flee," said the very first of the voices. Another girl, Coraline fancied. "Flee, while there's still air in your lungs, and blood in your veins, and warmth in your heart. Flee while you still have your mind and your soul." "I'm not running away," said Coraline. "She has my parents. I came to get them back." "Ah, but she'll keep you here while the days turn to dust and the leaves fall and the years pass No, said Coraline, she won't. There was silence, then in the room behind the mirror, peradventure, said a voice in the darkness. If you could win your mama and your papa back from the beldam, you could also win free our souls. Has she taken them? Asked Coraline, shocked. Ay, and hidden them. That is why we could not leave here. When we died, she kept us, and she fed on us, until now we've nothing left of ourselves, only snake skins and spider husks. Find our secret hearts, young mistress. And what will happen to you if I do? Asked Coraline. The voice had said nothing. And what is she going to do to me? She said. The bell fingers pulsed faintly. She could imagine that they were nothing more than after images, like the glow left by a bright light in your eyes after the lights go out. It don't not hurt, whispered one faint voice. She will take your life and all you are and all you're carest for, and she will leave you with nothing but mist and fog. She'll take your joy, and one day you'll awake, and your heart and your soul will have gone. A husk you'll be, a wisp you'll be, and a thing no more than a dream on waking, or a memory of something forgotten. Hollow, whispered the third voice. Hollow, 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 hollow. You must flee, sighed a voice faintly. I don't think so, said Coraline. I tried running away, and it didn't work. She just took my parents. Can you tell me how to get out of this room? If we knew, then we would tell you. Poor things, said Coraline to herself. She sat down. She took off her sweater and rolled it up and put it behind her head as a pillow. She won't keep me in the dark forever, said Coraline. She brought me here to play games. Games and challenges, the cat said. I'm not much of a challenge here in the dark. She tried to get comfortable, twisting and bending herself to fit the cramped space behind the mirror. Her stomach rumbled. She ate her last apple, taking the tiniest bites, making it last as long as she could. When she had finished, she was still hungry. Then an idea struck her, and she whispered, when she comes to let me out, why don't you three come with me? We wish that we could, they sighed to her. They're barely their voices, but she has our hearts in her keeping. Now we belong to the dark and to the empty places. The light would shrivel us and burn. Oh, said Coraline. She closed her eyes, which made the darkness darker, and she rested her head on the rolled up sweater, and she went to sleep. And as she fell asleep, she thought she felt a ghost kiss her cheek tenderly, and a small voice whisper into her ear, a voice so faint it was barely there at all, a gentle wispy nothing of a voice, so hushed that Coraline could almost believe she was imagining it. Look through the stone, it said to her. And then she slept. Chapter 8. It's the artwork. Guess it's just miscellaneous things from the other world. The other mother looked healthier than before. There was a little blush to her cheeks, and her hair was wriggling like lazy snakes on a warm day. Her black-butted eyes seemed as if they had been freshly polished. She had pushed through the mirror as if she were walking through nothing more solid than water, and had stared down at Coraline. Then she had opened the door with the little silver key. She picked Coraline up, just as Coraline's real mother had when Coraline was much younger, cradling the half-sleeping child as if she were a baby. The other mother carried Coraline into the kitchen and put her down very gently upon the countertop. Coraline struggled to wake herself up, conscious only for the moment of having been cuddled and loved, and wanting more of it, then realizing where she was and who she was with. "There, my sweet Coraline," said her other mother. "I came and fetched you out of the cupboard. You needed to be taught a lesson. But we temper our justice with mercy. Here, we love the sinner and we hate the sin. Now if you will be a good child who loves her mother, be compliant and fair-spoken, you and I shall understand each other perfectly, and we shall love each other perfectly as well." Coraline scratched the sleep grit from her eyes. "There were other children in there," she said. "Old ones from a long time ago." "Were there?" said the other mother. She was bustling between the pans and the fridge, bringing out eggs and cheeses, butter, and a slab of sliced pink bacon. "Yes," said Coraline, "there were. I think you're planning to turn me into one of them. A dead shell." Her other mother smiled gently. With one hand, she cracked the egg into a bowl. With the other, she whisked them and whirled them. Then she dropped a pat of butter into a frying pan, where it hissed and fizzled and spun as she sliced thin slices of cheese. She poured the melted butter and the cheese into the egg mixture and whisked it some more. "Now, I think you're being silly, dear," said the other mother. "I love you. I will always love you. Nobody sensible believes in ghosts anyway. That's because they're all such liars. Smell the lovely breakfast I'm making for you." She poured the yellow mixture into the pan. "Cheese omelet, your favorite." Coraline's mouth watered. "You like games," she said. "That's what I've been told." The other mother's black eyes flashed. "Everybody likes games," was all she said. "Yes," said Coraline. She climbed down from the counter and sat at the table. The bacon was sizzling and spitting under the grill. It smelled wonderful. "Wouldn't you be happier if you won me fair and square?" asked Coraline. "Possibly," said the other mother. She had a show of unconcernedness, but her fingers twitched and drummed, and she licked her lips with her scarlet tongue. "What exactly are you offering me?" said Coraline. She gripped her knees under the table to stop them from shaking. "If I lose, I'll stay here with you forever, and I'll let you love me. I'll be a most dutiful daughter. I'll eat your food and play happy families, and I'll let you sew your buttons into my eyes." Her other mother stared at her. "Black buttons, unblinking. That sounds very fine," she said. "And if you do not lose, then you let me go. You let everyone go. My real father and mother, the dead children, everyone you've trapped here." The other mother took the bacon from under the grill and put it on a plate. Then she slipped the cheese omelet from the pan onto the plate, flipping it as she did so, letting it fold itself into a perfect omelet shape. She placed the breakfast plate in front of Coraline, along with a glass of freshly squeezed orange juice and a mug of frothy hot chocolate. "Yes," she said, "I think I like this game. But what kind of game shall it be? A riddle, test of knowledge or of skill. An exploring game, suggested Coraline. A finding things game. And what is it you think you should be finding in this hide and go seek game? Coraline Jones. Coraline hesitated. Then, my parents, said Coraline, and the souls of the children behind the mirror. The other mother smiled at this triumphantly, and Coraline wondered if she had made the right choice. Still, it was too late to change her mind now. A deal, said the other mother. Now eat up your breakfast, my sweet. Don't worry, it won't hurt you. Coraline stared at the breakfast, hating herself for giving in so easily. But she was starving. How do I know you'll keep your word? Asked Coraline. I swear it. I swear it, said the other mother. I swear it on my own mother's grave. Does she have a grave? Asked Coraline. Oh, yes, said the other mother. I put her in there myself, and when I found her trying to crawl out, I put her back. Swear on something else so I can trust you to keep your word. My right hand, said the other mother, holding it up. She waggled the long fingers slowly, displaying the claw-like nails. I swear on that. Coraline shrugged. Okay, she said, it's a deal. She ate the breakfast, trying not to wolf it down. She was hungrier than she had thought. As she ate, her other mother stared at her. It was hard to read expression into those black-button eyes. But Coraline thought that her other mother looked hungry too. She drank the orange juice, but even though she knew she would like it, she could not bring herself to taste the hot chocolate. Where should I start looking? Asked Coraline. Where you wish, said the other mother, as if she did not care at all. Coraline looked at her, and Coraline thought hard. There was no point, she decided, in exploring the garden. And the grounds. They didn't exist. They weren't real. There was no abandoned tennis court in the other mother's world. No bottomless well. All that was real was the house itself. She looked around the kitchen. She opened the oven, peered into the freezer, poked into the salad compartment of the fridge. The other mother followed her about, looking at Coraline with a smirk always hovering at the edge of her lips. How big are souls anyway? Asked Coraline. The other mother sat down at the kitchen table and leaned back against the wall, saying nothing. She picked at her teeth with a long crimson varnished fingernail. Then she tapped the finger gently, tap, 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 against the polished black surface of her black button eyes. Fine, said Coraline. Don't tell me. I don't care. It doesn't matter if you help me or not. Everyone knows that a soul is the same size as a beach ball. She was hoping the other mother would say something like, nonsense. They're the size of ripe onions, or suitcases, or grandfather clocks. But the other mother simply smiled, and the tap tap tapping of her fingernail against her eye was a steady and relentless as the drip of a water droplets from the faucet into the sink. And then Coraline realized it was simply the noise of the water, and she was alone in the room. Coraline shivered. She preferred the other mother to have a location. If she were nowhere, then she could be anywhere. And, after all, it is always easier to be afraid of something you cannot see. She put her hands into her pockets, and her fingers closed around the reassuring shape of the stone with the hole in it. She pulled it out of her pocket, held it in front of her as if she were holding a gun, and walked out She glanced at the mirror at the end of the hall. For a moment, it clouded over, and it seemed to her that faces swam in the glass, indistinct and shapeless, and the faces were gone, and there was nothing in the mirror but a girl who was small for her age, holding something that glowed gently like a green coal. Coraline looked down at her hand, surprised. It was just a stone with a hole in it, a nondescript brown pebble. Then she looked back into the mirror where the stone glimmered like an emerald. A trail of green fire blew from the pebble in the mirror and drifted toward Coraline's bedroom. Said Coraline. She walked into the bedroom. The toys fluttered excitedly as she walked in, as if they were pleased to see her. And a little Tink rolled out of the toy box to greet her, its tread rolling over several other toys. It fell from the toy box onto the floor, tipping as it fell, and it lay on the carpet like a beetle on its back, grumbling and grinding its tread before Coraline picked it up and turned it over. The Tink fled under the bed in embarrassment. Coraline looked around the room. She looked in the cupboards and the drawers. Then she picked up one end of the toy box and tipped all the toys out onto the carpet, where they grumbled and stretched and wiggled awkwardly free of each other. A green marble rolled across the floor and clicked against the wall. None of the toys looked particularly soul-like, she thought. She picked up and examined a silver charm bracelet from which hung tiny animal charms that chased each other around the perimeter of the bracelet. The fox never catching the rabbit, the bear never gaining on the fox. Coraline opened her hand and looked at the stone with the hole in it, hoping for a clue, but not finding one. Most of the toys that had been in the toy box had now crawled away to hide under the bed, and the few toys that were left, a green plastic soldier, the glass marble, a vivid pink yo-yo, and such, were the kinds of things that you find in the bottoms of a toy box in the real world. Forgotten objects, abandoned and unloved. She was about to leave and look elsewhere, and then she remembered a voice in the darkness, a gentle whispering voice, and what it had told her to do. She raised the stone with a hole in it and held it in front of her right eye. She closed her left eye and looked at the room through the hole in the stone. Through the stone, the world was gray and colorless, like a pencil drawing. Everything in it was gray. No, not quite everything. Something glinted on the floor, something the color of an ember in a nursery fireplace, the color of a scarlet and orange tulip nodding in the May sun. Coraline reached out her left hand, scared that if she took her eye off it, it would vanish. As she fumbled from the burning thing, her fingers closed about something smooth and cool. She snatched it up, and then lowered the stone with a hole in it from her eye and looked down. The great glass marble from the bottom of the toy box sat dully in the pink palm of her hand. She raised the stone to her eye once more and looked through it at the marble. Once again the marble burned and flickered with a red fire. A voice whispered in her mind, "Indeed, lady, it comes to me that I certainly was a boy. Now I don't think on it. Oh, but you must hurry. There are two of us still to find, and the beldam is already angry with you for uncovering me." She changed back into her pajamas and her dressing gown and her slippers, leaving the gray sweater and the black jeans neatly folded on the bed, the orange boots on the floor by the toy box. She put the marble into her dressing gown pocket and walked out into the hall. Something stung her face and hands like a blowing on a beach on a windy day. She covered her eyes and pushed forward. The sand stings got worse, and it got harder and harder to walk, as if she were pushing into the wind on a particularly blustery day. It was a vicious wind and a cold one. She took a step backwards, the way she had come. "Oh, keep going," whispered a ghost voice in her ear, "for the beldam is angry." She stepped forward in the hallway into another gust of wind, which stung her cheeks and face with invisible sand, sharp as needles, sharp as glass. "Play fair," shouted Coraline into the wind. There was no reply, but the wind whipped about her one more time, petulantly, and then it dropped away and was gone. As she passed the kitchen, Coraline could hear, in the sudden silence, the drip, drip of the water from the leaking tap, or perhaps the other mother's long fingernails tapping impatiently against the table. Coraline resisted the urge to look. In a couple of strides, she reached the front of the door, and she walked outside. Coraline went down the steps and around the house until she reached the other Miss Mink and Miss Forcible's flat. The lamps around the door were flickering on and off, almost randomly now, spelling out no words that Coraline could understand. The door was closed. She was afraid it was locked, and she pushed on it with all her strength. First it stuck, then suddenly it gave, and with a jerk, Coraline stumbled into the dark room beyond. Coraline closed one hand around the stone with the hole in it and walked forward into the blackness. She expected to find a curtain anteroom, but there was nothing there. The room was dark. The theater was empty. She moved ahead cautiously. Something rustled above her. She looked up into a deeper darkness, and as she did, saw her feet knocked against something. She reached down, picked up a flashlight, and clicked it on, sweeping the beam around the room. The theater was derelict and abandoned. Chairs were broken on the floor, and old, dusty spiderwebs draped the walls and hung from the rotten wood and the decomposing velvet hangings. Something rustled once again. Coraline directed her light beam upward toward the ceiling. There were things up there, headless jellyfish. She thought they might once have had faces, might even once have been dogs. But no dogs had wings like bats or could hang like spiders, like bats upside down. The light startled the creatures, and one of them took to the air, its wings whirring heavily through the dust. Coraline ducked as it swooped close to her. It came to rest on a far wall, and it began to clamber upside down back to the nest of the dog bats upon the ceiling. Coraline raised the stone to her eye, and she scanned the room through it, looking for something that glowed or glinted, a telltale sign that somewhere in this room was another hidden soul. She ran the beam of the flashlight above the room as she was searching, the thick dust in the air making the light beam seem almost solid. There was something up on the back wall behind the ruined stage. It was grayish white, twice the size of Coraline herself. It was stuck to the back wall like a slug. Coraline took herself. But she scrambled up onto the old stage, fingers sinking into the rotting wood as she pulled herself up. As she got closer to the thing on the wall, she saw that we're on a cliffhanger. It stops mid-sentence. She saw that. That is page 100. Alright guys, I truly guys hope you guys enjoyed. Hope this was relaxing. Hope this put you in bed. I hope it was a nice little movie for your mind. Please enjoy